Welcome to the Nerd Party.
I'm Darren Moser.
I'm Philip Gilfus.
I'm Daniel Prue.
And this is City Alpha 3.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to City Alpha 3, a Star Trek podcast here on the Nerd Party Network. I am your captain. I'm going to say that. I'm your captain this week, Daniel Prue, and joining me, as always, are my two lowly ensigns of some sort of vegetable or another. We've got Darren and Philip. Guys, how's it going?
Just because you get to wear the Captain Fez this week doesn't mean we get
Captain
to be
Fez.
ensigns. Yeah.
Fezzes are cool, man.
That's true.
So what's going on? How's life?
So I am continuing my TOS rewatch, and then what I do is I send you guys messages on Slack, somewhat to let you guys know what the cool stuff I'm saying, but mostly it's notes for this, so I don't have to remember later. So I finished watching The Naked Now. Actually, I can never remember whether it's The Naked Now or The Naked Time. It's The Naked episode, whatever the title is.
Because The Naked Time is the one from the animated series, right?
No, there's the TNG.
Oh, that's right. I know
Yeah.
there's another
So
series
anyway.
that had the nakedness.
But the Naked one. So two things. I felt like we've, in our mini podcast and my mini Star Trek reflections, that it always seemed like with the TOS, it was always like the solid ranks. It's like ensign was no rank. Then there was lieutenants. Everyone was a lieutenant, right? And then you had your random lieutenant commander every now and then, a Scotty. And then you had your commander and then your captain. But that was the only ranks. None of this lieutenant, junior grade. But then I saw one. Like the main guy in the episode who gets sick and scratches his nose, and Joey, who I mean, he's a lieutenant junior grade. All he has is dashes on his braid sleeves. But I feel like I've never seen a lieutenant.
That's what drove him mad.
Yeah, I thought I'd never seen one in TOS, but I saw one, so that was a cool thing. And then, like for the second time, this is airing order, so this is probably like the fourth episode. Uhura takes one of the forward stations, so it is cool to see, She's used well, even if it's just like because at some point even Yeoman Rand's forced to take Helm, and I don't even think that she knows how to use it. But Kirk's just like, take it because there's no one left. So.
You gotta do what you gotta do in those types of situations.
So
Interesting. Okay.
I've been re-listening to Enterprise War, not the latest at this point, but one of the latest Star Trek Discovery books, and this is about where the Enterprise was during season 2. Well, yeah, basically during the bulk of the Klingon War,
back half one,
and and it's again, it's a great listening to it the second time. I've really been enjoying these books, and
who reads it?
And it is read. There's like the same person who does all of them.
Oh, okay. Are they Star Trek related?
No, this one is
just
not.
Some guy or girl.
John Jackson Miller does usually
his
the
name
main
is
Star
my
Trek
name
ones.
too.
Nice.
Well, whenever he goes about, people always shout, "There goes John Jackson Miller," speaking audible. Yes, no, he's one of the main ones for the Star Trek audiobooks where he speaks them, and he does a really good job.
In a related vein, it came out this week, guys, that in an interview, Kurtzman said that there's 2 additional unannounced Star Trek live-action shows.
I can't handle it, guys. It's too much.
So we have to assume one of them is going to be the Pike show, right? It's got to be.
We can hope.
It's going to be. They already have the sets.
I mean, I think I've seen people mention, that they have the sets.
That's funny.
I mean, granted, it's all paid for, so it's not like they have to make money off of it, but why not? So,
right.
It's one of those.
Okay, so then what is the fourth one then, Daniel?
Yeah, what is that? Starfleet Academy I'm seeing rumblings about, possibly, which I'd be keen on.
It's been pitched since 1970, whatever, that it'd be a
Starfleet. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Though it's funny to me, because it's not that we have an idea. It's we want 2 shows for, I don't know, reasons. That's what the Magic 8 Ball said, too, is the magic number. And so, I mean, I'd rather it come from a place of ideas than just, but whatever. I mean, I get it.
Right.
It isn't
rather than a quota to fill.
Right, and I'm not trying to be anti-capitalist, because I mean, if the thought process is to have Star Trek airing constantly on All Access, 8 episodes, and then 10 episodes of another, and then that makes sense.
But, guys, there's one easy way to solve that problem. Go back to the TNG era slate of episodes. You had 24 episodes every year. That's like, it's constantly going. It's always going. No hiatus. It's just always Trek. These little 8-episode, 10-episode, 12 weak sauce. You gotta crank them out.
You gotta think, though. I mean, and this is more about the television industry in general than Star Trek, but like, you've got to think that these shorter run shows, not just because of the number of episodes and stuff, but just based on logistics and time, like, this must be much cheaper relatively to produce than it is to produce one of those almost 8-month long, where you have to have all these people working all the time. So if they want to do a lot of little shows, I get what you're saying, Philip. I'm a little worried about burnout, but I'm also a little less worried about burnout as well, as long as, like you say, there's some creative reason to do it. There's something interesting.
I'd rather they spend more money giving us 8 episodes of a great story than spend less money stretching it out for 22 just to fill a quota.
Right.
And I don't pay attention to stuff as much as it's like Darren or other folks do, but it seems to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, that all these series have completely different production teams. I mean, at the top, it's Kurtzman and whoever, but like Discovery has its own people in Canada,
right? And
then Picard has its own people in L.A. And then, it's not like in the old days where you had, Doug Drexler and Zimmerman working on 5 shows at once. It's totally different people. And so, like, it's not burnout in the 90s where you had, someone who started maybe in TNG and then started working on Deep Space Nine, then started working on Voyager, then started working on Enterprise. And by then you're like, well, for God's sakes, let the franchise rest maybe. That was when you were churning out stuff and it was killing people. But all these productions seem to be so separate that they just have their own people.
And it's a really good point, too, that I wanted to talk about at some point. It never really fit anything that we're talking about. I'm kind of curious. It feels like there's a huge break, and for a lot of reasons I understand, but there's a very big break between...
A saucer separation, as it were?
You could say that. You could say saucer separation. Between what we'll call classic Legacy Trek and New Trek. And I feel like... I think they're going out of their way... Maybe not out of the way, because but they're not using a lot of that old talent that's still around, which I'm sure those people would still love to be involved in Star Trek in some way.
The Orville's employing all those people.
Yeah, that's true. Although I'm sure if they came back, what I'm saying basically is I want them to give one of those live action shows to Ron Moore specifically. But there's lots of other great talent from behind the scenes from old Star Trek that they could absolutely get involved in the new stuff too. So I'm glad that there was a big break, and because we needed new blood after 2 decades of Star Trek on TV and the movies, and we needed new ideas. But now you can start especially since with like something like Picard, where you're bringing back old elements. Now would be a good time to at least have.
I don't appreciate how you're talking about Patrick Stewart.
But speaking of, guys, this is a perfect segue. Did you see the last, I guess, teaser trailer?
Well, of course, it's already aired for the folks who are listening, but yes, to date, yes.
Oh, that's right. Sorry. But we're still going to talk about it because there is a beauty shot of the Enterprise D.
It's so pretty.
In it. Mm-hmm. And we've seen it in HD before. But it's nice to see there's no crazy, silly redesigns.
Stop rubbing that in the face of the DS9 fans, Daniel.
So I did get hyped. I got hyped when I saw that. And they were also released what is probably the opening scene of the first episode where Data and Picard are talking on the Enterprise. But yeah, you're right. It's kind of pointless to talk about it, but
yeah.
No, it's still pretty.
Yeah, I mean, because I was just going to say, I was just thinking about this, because, I know it's aired for folks who are listening to it, but we're in the past currently, that it's good, not interesting, it's good to see all the people that are tweeting, excitement and Picard and all that stuff. And I'm not necessarily excited. I mean, that's just me. I'm not saying people shouldn't be. That's just me. And I think maybe, this is going to sound so old fogey, but here it goes. I think maybe because the time has passed for me. I mean, I'm going to watch. I'm probably going to like it. But, I've locked in. It's kind of like the whole Scotty and Picard.
Trek already got you.
Yeah. I'm already at the the Scotty and Picard scene in the holodeck of I already fell in love with my ship. I'm good. I'm sure I'll enjoy this series, but I'm good. So it's one of those things where I'm not as excited. I'm glad to be here. I'm glad Star Trek's going, but I envy those people who are excited, and I'm glad they are.
Interesting. I had a thought. We were chatting about the possible fourth show being a Starfleet Academy show. Would you rather have it be like Kirk-ish time Monster Maroon Academy show, or would you rather it be taking place concurrently with Picard, and Picard becomes the new prime time?
Yeah, I wouldn't want no more going back, I would say.
Daniel wants crossover after crossover after crossover.
No, yeah, which would be great. I mean, they didn't. We really only got crossovers in a handful of episodes and like the pilots, but besides that, they really didn't utilize that in Star Trek in the 90s.
Yeah, you don't even have to do it that much. You do like one, like you follow the CW model at this point, I guess is what you call it.
Crisis on Infinite Tracks. Yes.
You do one big event a year, and then maybe like one other episode.
A Christmas special?
No, it's for sweeps on streaming.
Awkward, Philip. That's an old person thing to say.
Maybe it's not. Is it not sweeps? Is it subscribe? It's like when everyone's gonna need to renew.
Swipes left.
Swipes.
I don't know.
Swipes left.
Okay, that's okay. You know what? We don't need to focus on this anyways because we'll be talking plenty of it in the near future. But we're gonna talk about old stuff. So, Philip, listen up.
You know how to sell things, Daniel.
turn your hearing aid up, Philip. We're going back to the old. We just passed the 25th.
Yep,
is right anniversary of Star Trek Voyager, and I know, me sitting here in this chair, I know I've got two Voyager superfans here. So I want to hear. How excited.
That's a nice way of saying I don't like Voyager. You guys do.
I didn't say that. It's nuanced, but. So I want to hear why you guys love Voyager so much, and how you celebrated it, and how much it means to you. Let's go.
Nuance generators failing, Captain. Divert power.
Deflectors. Turn the deflectors on. Somebody else talk.
Sarcasm detector.
Why don't you start? You start, Philip. Why do you?
Sure.
Why? I got to say it this way. Why do you like Voyager?
Why? I mean, why? No. So it's interesting, I don't pretend to have a 100% memory because oldness, but, obviously I came on board TNG whenever I did. I don't remember, third, fourth season, who knows, and watched it live, whatever, contemporaneously. I checked out with Deep Space Nine. I had zero interest in DS9, so once TNG was out, that was it for me as far as watching Star Trek. I mean, I was all of whatever at the, 13, when you make these life decisions. But anyway, but Voyager started, and I was involved, that was my first Trek series from the ground up. I remember reading about, what they were thinking, and then I remember having, those first fan nerd moments of, and there's a rumor that it's going to be a holographic doctor. I'm like, that's stupid. A holographic doctor, that's a dumb idea. Ugh, this is going to be stupid. I started that early on. But, I remember it first airing, of course, with its, Star Wars, crawl and music, and then I have this memory, and I think and I don't know whether it's my memory playing tricks or whether this actually happened, that during the opening, Maquis attack, or whatever you want to call it, I distinctly remember, there's the crawl, you see the Maquis ship, the Cardassian ship is firing, and then Chakotay's face comes on the screen. I distinctly remember there being sort of it's the ship gets attacked and they're static, and so the screen that you're watching actually goes static and then comes back on, it just knocked out the camera that you're watching. But I've never seen that at any time I've ever watched Caretaker again, so I don't know if that's just a fake memory or not. But anyway, from there, 7 years later, right? I really enjoyed Voyager because and we can say to what degree, but to me it was capturing that TOS flavor, because even TNG, even though I wasn't necessarily knew all of TOS or all of the Star Trek that was up till then when I watched TNG, Voyager was completely alien. There are no familiar, until we met them, but till no familiar aliens, and had sort of new aliens as part of the crew. And to me, there was just a whole lot of different things, the holographic doctor, which obviously turned out great, and all these other things, and just the different circumstances, and as, saying the same thing people have said before, great, to me, great potential. Like, to me, it started off on full cylinders, but then never went anywhere, not never, but just like the second, it's like, oh, that's okay. I thought we were going to go up from here, not just, but it started at like a 7 instead of starting, a little lower like some pilots, but then just stayed at 7. And then I was like, oh, we're not going to 8 anytime soon? No? Okay. And of course, once you had your sort of 7 introduction and the trying to re-energize the show, sort of like a Worf Defiant, if you will, of Deep Space Nine. So yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I'll stop now, but I like Janeway as a more complex captain. She's wrong, she's right, but I'm always there for it, other than compared to my favorite Picard, who's usually always right. But I like Janeway being wrong, because to me it was interesting to watch her when she was wrong, and you sort of got a imperfect captain, which I thought was interesting, because she was still good in a lot of ways, great in a lot of ways, but still had a lot of foibles. But anyway, that's why I like it.
Yeah, for me, Voyager, started in 95, and 96, as we know, was the 30th anniversary of Star Trek. And man, it was just peak Trek, man. It was coming out of my pores. It was everywhere. There was magazines and Playmates toys and, new Trek on. You had Deep Space Nine and Voyager on at the same time. You had 2 shows going back to back. But I think at the end of the day, Voyager had a little bit smaller of a cast. DS9 is really relying on the whole ensemble, which isn't bad, but it was kind of a return to form. You have a starship, they're exploring new planets every week. New forehead of the month, and I just really liked that. I liked the adventures they told, and I really liked the characters. I think they nailed it with so many of them. Granted, as we look back, we wish that they had done more, with like the Maquis Starfleet angle. But what they did give us, was enjoyable. You have Catherine Janeway, making all these tough decisions. You have the fan favorite, the Doctor, that everyone just loves. He's a light bulb, not a, something rather. I don't know. But I feel that they found a way to tell us these stories in a fresh way, with different answers to those same questions that we got in TNG. It felt very, if anyone's saying, oh well, the new Picard show is not going to be TNG, well, Voyager felt very TNG, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I just mean that in the base model of starship goes to planet, but the overall story we got with the voyage home, not the movie, but the voyage home of this crew trying to survive against the odds. And again, I think we all agree that they could have played into that even more, but serialized television is what it is. But I liked Voyager. I felt it gave us enough more of the same of Next Gen, which being my favorite, I enjoyed, but enough new that it was interesting in the types of stories they could tell. What you didn't have Data sitting there, you didn't have a Troy or a Guinan, but you had other characters that were really interesting. For all his foibles, Neelix became a really interesting character. And definitely where they took him in later seasons, and the Doctor just became this blowout star of just this. From having rights to having a family to, saving the ship and dreaming and all. That's Star Trek right there. But again, at its core, Voyager was, do we stick to our ideals even when we're not in the, heart of Federation territory? That's kind of the, if you're cut off from your people and your resources, and as Quark would say, if you take away their creature comforts, humans can get really, angry and vicious. But the crew of the Voyager didn't. They stuck together, and while we know in, the real world that this is a TV show and it's only going to last so long, and they're going to get home at the very end.
7 years.
They're looking down, I'm saying at the beginning we didn't know how many years they were going to go for.
Didn't we?
But they're staring down the barrel of a 70-year journey, which is a long, long time. But yeah, so some of the reasons I like Voyager. In my TED Talk, I will share how.
Now, for the counterpoint, we go to.
No. We're here to celebrate.
No, Counterpoint is a Voyager episode, Daniel. That's a joke Philip was making.
I get it. So here's the thing. Everybody who's ever listened to this knows Voyager is not my favorite of the Star Trek shows. But, of course, there's still a lot to love. And, to me, Voyager, for both good and bad, it feels like Star Trek comfort food to me. And so I do feel like there's episodes where it feels the most homey. Is that the right word to use? Like familial, comfortable.
Just this cheese to sick bay. It's
Well, because it wasn't the aloftness and I say this in a loving way, the elitism of TNG between some of the structure. DS9 was about conflict because that's what you need in a TV series. So all of their characters were conflicted, whereas Voyager was sort of your first. Everyone's kind of at the same level, and we're all in this together, like High School Musical would say.
Well, everybody except for Harry.
Right.
But
poor Harry.
Yeah. No, I mean, there's a lot of frustration for me in Voyager, based on Phil, we were talking about the missed opportunities and stuff. But I mean, I'll be damned if there's some of those episodes aren't some of the best in Star Trek for sure. I mean, when Voyager does, hit it hits it strong, I think. And it's really interesting, like you were talking about, Philip, just comparing the different series. And yeah, I could see the differences there. And you mentioned, I think, specifically comparing it to Voyager to TOS, and I think that's pretty good. But yeah, even this. If you take the time period out of TOS, because of course it's the campiest, just because that's when it was produced, that deals. It feels a little bit more serious, a little bit heavier than Voyager. Voyager to me feels like the lightest, campiest, fluffiest Star Trek, and sometimes that's what you want. Sometimes you want, and we'll talk about favorite episodes and stuff. Sometimes you want a Captain Proton, and that is awesome. That's great. That's some of the best stuff. I actually think almost all of my favorite Voyager episodes are funny ones, are silly ones, are the ones where you're having fun. And I just think that's kind of how I view Voyager. And it's and honestly, some of the characters are great. The characters are fantastic. I really don't, aside from maybe one or two that are meh or kind of boring, they're really on point. So there's a ton to love in Voyager. But we'll get into all that. So let's start with who your favorite character in Voyager is. And I think I'll go first since I just went last. I mean, it's got to be the Doctor for me. It's got to be. But it's not.
Should it be name your favorate character that's not the Doctor? That might be interesting.
Yeah, we could do that. But honestly, the Doctor, he is there, but it's not a I love Tuvok as an underutilized character. I wish Tuvok was used more. I love Tom as probably the best kind of comedic, class clown kind of character that Star Trek has had. There's a lot of these characters that fit these archetypes. Even if they're not utilized to their maximum potential, I think that they're just great characters played by great actors. And if I had to pick one, gun to my head, twist my arm, I would say the Doctor. What about you, Philip?
Yeah, I would have to say Janeway. And it's interesting when Voyager was on the air, and even when it's not, when I would think, who's your favorite character, I'd be like, I don't know. They're all. I don't know. I'm just gonna sound insulting. They're all kind of the same, or they don't really stand out. And none of them really stood out for me. I mean, actually, I actually do have a favorite character that's not Janeway, but I'm not, I guess you have to be in more than 3 seasons to be a favorite character. Because, I mean, the answer is Kes. The correct answer is always Kes.
Okay.
Yeah. I tell you, you need to rewatch Voyager. She is much more than people think. But Janeway as the actual main player, because again, I think it's I often talk about this when I talk about Doctor Who, but she's watchable, if that makes sense. Like, whether the episode's good or bad, or whether I agree or disagree with her opinions, sometimes I'm shouting at the screen at her when she's being, crazy, locking Chakotay in his quarters because he dared to present an alternate plan. But it's interesting to see those foibles and those ups and downs and her push to her limits, and to have this big weight on her shoulders of what, taking the crew home, did I make the right decision? Because you could be like, she should just be decisive. But I mean, like, she's a real person. She's under stress. She doesn't have anyone to talk to. Like, zero. I mean, really, she could talk to Tuvok, I suppose. But even then, only so far. There's no admirals or anything else. And so it's interesting to kind of see her go back and forth and up and down, and the sacrifices she'll make and the decisions she has to make, and, dressing up like, the Bride of Chaotica, all those things. So yeah, I think it's Captain Catherine Janeway.
What would you say your favorite is?
Yeah, because I'm trying not to default to like the Doctor, because I think that's partially just because the Doctor episodes were kind of the most fun. Like, they had the most, variety, and it's like, oh, now the Doctor's shrinking, or oh, the Doctor has to save the ship, or oh, the Doctor's been stolen, or oh, the Doctor's now a writer, or he has a family, or he's, No, I feel
I just, for the Doctor, except for the family episode you just mentioned. Actually, one of my favorite episodes of The Doctor isn't a funny one, because the family one isn't funny either. But it does start off funny, though, but it ends sad. But it's the one, I can't remember the name of it, but it's the one where it starts off that he doesn't have memories, and it's because he had to make the decision.
Oh, yeah.
The triage decision.
Yeah.
And to me,
and he couldn't live with it.
Yeah, and he broke down. And I mean, we'll have to do the whole episode here, but to me, that's one of my favorite episodes, especially because it ends on a non-ending, which, as a writer, I probably do too much. Because you just let the audience try and figure out how this is going to go from there. Because even though we will want to say that Voyager is so episodic, and of course it is, as much as TNG is, but that episode right there, it sort of leaves it open about, like, where we go from here.
It does, yeah.
It is
that's
a great
really
episode.
Good one.
Yeah.
And then another Doctor episode I really liked is the one where his program is stolen and he's put in that hospital with the different levels, the blue, red, white.
Oh, the Medicare for All episode.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And it's basically like, oh, here's this drug that we could use to save these people, but we're using it at the higher tier level to, like, anti-aging and stuff like that. And it's just, that's
well, hang on,
Star
Darren.
Trek right there.
I heard that Star Trek doesn't get political, so I don't know what you're talking about. But,
I don't know what you're talking about, Daniel, because Star Trek is highly political.
It's interesting. I would have to watch that again because I in my, not necessarily in the real fan collective out there, but in my head fan collective, I remember thinking, like, that's a borderline, like, is this too preachy and on message, or is this a good metaphor? Like, it's on the border. Like, you have force of nature on this side where it's like, yeah, no, we got it. We got it. And then you have, like, the Deep Space Nine 21st century episode on this side where it's like, okay, it's a metaphor. So I'm trying to figure out, I have to watch again, like, how, for lack of a better word, it's an overused word, but how preachy is that episode?
Was it was Workforce?
No.
Is that right?
No. Workforce is part 1 and 2. That's a different one.
Oh, okay.
That's one where the crew loses their memory and they'll have to...
They all think that they're helping the greater good.
Oh, yes, you're right. Okay, sorry.
Well, and I also, we got this beautiful time capsule of the 90s when they go back. To
Future's End.
Future's End. I mean, that's just let alone for where they're walking on that boardwalk. It's just, I love that. It's and the computers and it's so 90s. But I would actually. It's really hard for me to, like, rank one over another as far as characters, but honestly, I really enjoyed Tom Paris. I feel that they allowed his character to grow a lot. I mean, from the pilot where he's being picked up off the penal colony in New Zealand to finding love and starting a family and, having to change his motivations from being all about himself to being about others. And I mean, I know that he wasn't the most perfect written character, and there's ups and downs and lizard babies and all of that. But Overall, I really like what they did with that character, and I would have. Nick Locarno would be proud. I'll put it that way.
It's interesting, and I'm not arguing that they should have, but in a way, in a very truncated way, it's almost like Discovery, where, not really, but he's almost the main character. Like, he's the character we're introduced first, literally, and then we sort of watch him throughout the pilot, and he's sort of your everyday guy because he's kind of like the fan, right? He's not involved. He's just an observer. And it's not till the end that he's allowed to be part of the crew. And then he's in it. And then has that 20th century knowledge, so he's like us. And he's sort of your everyday, not like a Miles O'Brien, but like a younger, everyday man, watching TV. And so it's sort of, for a white man, I don't want to generalize, who the audience is. He's supposed to sort of maybe be an introductory character of the audience. And I'm not saying it's perfect, but he's almost like a Michael is what I'm trying to say before there was a Michael. Obviously, Janeway's the main character, but...
Well, it's really interesting, too, because if you think about it, especially with your comparison to Discovery, Discovery, and I think definitely to its fault, feels like it has to have, like, this central character that everything revolves around.
He's also a mutineer. I just want to throw that out there.
Oh, that's true. That's a good point. Yeah. And the thing is, like, you could definitely... I agree with you. Like, you could see... Like, you make a few adjustments to Voyager, and you could definitely see everything from Tom's perspective. But that story is a much more ensemble story, and so it works better. I mean, like, maybe even now I'm thinking, like, maybe they feel this need to have like one central character, and that is to the detriment of Discovery. Maybe Discovery is more interesting, more as a more ensemble show. I don't know. I mean, there's lots of other issues there too, but.
Like 2 points that it makes me think of. One thing that you said that got me thinking, Philip, was Tom being the introductory character to us. Because I never really thought about, okay, let's say Voyager's your first Star Trek. Mm-hmm. How do you ease into that? And you're right, Tom is kind of a more relatable, more 20th century kind of temperament and things he likes and things he does that I could see, he could be kind of a gateway character to Star Trek instead of all the technobabble all the time. He doesn't really do that very much.
He likes his tomato soup plain and his television black and white.
Television and the little glasses. But what I think is interesting about Voyager is all of the characters have different, like they're different percentage Starfleet. And I think that's an interesting thing. So like Janeway, 100% Starfleet, But then, like, they're all just different combinations. And then you have, like, Tom.
Their character sheet.
Who has, like, the Starfleet knowledge, but he wasn't, active. Then you have Tuvok, who has the start, is Starfleet.
200% Starfleet.
But he was on the other side. And then so it's just interesting, because I think B'Elanna's, like, the only one, if I'm thinking
20%
correctly.
Starfleet. She's an Academy dropout.
Okay, Josh, I was going to say that she's the only one that didn't have any Starfleet connection. The Doctor's at 800% Starfleet. He's programmed by Starfleet. But it's just interesting that we had never had that. I mean, everybody wearing a uniform in any of the other shows was 100% Starfleet and was expected to act as such.
I see what you're saying. Not DS9, because people weren't Starfleet in Deep Space Nine. But in Voyager, everyone was literally wearing the uniform except for Cass and Neelix.
Right.
But they were varying on do you want to do things the Starfleet way or the Maquis way?
Right. Like, I'm going to say you wouldn't look at, if
B'Elanna,
Dax,
right?
Sisko, Bashir, and O'Brien are in a room, it's all Starfleet. You know what I mean? Like, I know the statement 100% Starfleet.
I know what you mean.
Yes, there's variation, but it felt different in Voyager.
Let me tell you, Admiral
we didn't know
Sir.
What we were gonna get.
Simple words. We were drafted.
This reactivation clause pulled me out of New Zealand. Honestly, at the end of the day, I just love the premise of Voyager. I think it was just a really interesting idea. I think it was smart, the whole getting home, aspect. And, we've always, again, talked about how we wish they'd kind of gone even deeper into that and had more impact and consequence due to their isolation. But, from when, like, the Pathfinder project starts, and they start to get letters from home.
They made Barclay interesting. That's
they made Barclay interesting.
I know.
I mean, not that he wasn't interesting before, but they made him more relatable. They toned him way down. No, I think they did a great job with that.
Thinking on the premise that you just mentioned, Darren, I'm curious. What there is, of course, the obvious.
The cells up or down? Okay, let me think about it.
There's the obvious. It's a '90s television show. Of course, they're going to get home. But do you think the show would have been better served, or would you have been happier, or at least more interested, if they did not get home?
No. Honestly, no. I don't think Star Trek's ready for a gosh.
But if the journey is the point, if that's the
to
whole
the journey
point of the show.
But part of the journey is the end of the journey.
Hey, you're speaking Iron Man to me now. I'm listening, but I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't actually land one way or the other on this one. I just think that the ending was too easy, especially because they just didn't do anything until the last episode.
Yeah, that was not as
so it didn't feel
well-paced.
earned at all. Is what I'm saying. What do you think, Philip?
Well, I was going to say before you start throwing out these generalizations about 90s shows with happy endings, there's one of my favorite shows that I grew up with that ended in 90s. I just double checked. When was the last episode? 1993. Did not wrap up with a happy ending. Quantum Leap. Sam did never returned home. Literally says that at the end. So
I think in Sliders, I don't think they made it home either.
Yeah.
I don't remember.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I mean, look, we all know Endgame is not great. So we don't want to pin our it's the Enterprise problem. It's everything before that. But and again, not to go back to my whole premise of the start, and then we kind of fell, and then 7. I don't know why I'm hesitating that 7 is good. She is good. I think it's my first watch. I was like, why are we doing this? But as in the past intervening decades, of course 7's great.
About 2.5 decades.
Yeah, I
right?
know.
That sounds about right.
Roughly.
But she did. I mean, the writers they found. Now, of course, they became like the Seven and Doctor and Janeway show. But that's like with every other series. So I can't complain that much.
Data Picard movies.
Exactly.
And
exactly.
we all. It's what happens.
But the point I wanted to make was the things they started showed to me a maturity of storytelling. Because, for instance, the Doctor is not in many episodes in the beginning. Barely. He has the one scene, probably, in the pilot, the infamous scene, and then maybe...
he was stuck in that sick bay, which,
Yeah. But even then, I mean, that's the one scene, and, there's no... He's just sort of the cameo appearance for, almost, the first 5 episodes before kind of... And, you literally see the character developing with him. So, I think the Doctor's... And I know this wasn't your question, but, you see that character development was great with the Doctor. Now, I can't say that with everyone, but Doctor, Tom, I think 7. So, I mean, 3 out of the 7 isn't bad to have some decent character development.
Yeah, we haven't really... I mean, we've just brushed kind of just off to the side here, but 7 is an important part of Voyager, at least obviously later on, and changed the course of the show. And obviously now we're getting her in Picard as well, so... I love 7. I think she's great. I think she was terribly, obviously, completely what would you say? Mistreated isn't the right word, but...
The person or the character?
Yeah. Well, I mean, so obviously the sex appeal...
Yeah.
Was completely and wholly inappropriate. Not that sex appeal is inappropriate.
You bring in a new Borg crew member,
and
you're like, okay, Borg, we know what Borg look like. That is not what I expected the Borg crew member to look like on the ship.
Yeah. And then the poor conditions that poor Jerry Ryan had to go through to do all that. And it's and then anytime people talk about 7, it's always oh man, remember when they put her in a Starfleet uniform? That was awesome, that one episode they actually did it.
She looked way better in a Starfleet uniform.
So it's tough sometimes to separate. You understand your mind, your brain, your smart brain understands the reason they brought her in, what it did for the show. But she's elevated so much beyond that for me. Because that character's massively interesting and really switched up the dynamics inside of Voyager, changed the show, I think, for the better. I think the later half is better than the earlier half, for the most part. that's tough. But yeah, I think it's a great character to bring back, especially in this capacity. I'm very excited to see her again, and of course now we're kind of taking her seriously, and it's not like it was before. So I'm excited to see that.
Yeah, it's interesting to me because we talked a little bit about how Voyager was sort of the grandchild of TOS, maybe more than some of the other shows. It was interesting, and people can argue whether it was good or bad, what they took from TNG. Like, it seemed like it was the inheritance of TNG and not really DS9, because, of course, DS9 was on at the same time. So we talked about some of the things that they took from them. And so, like, for instance, Barclay, we mentioned. But, like, Q, it to me, in my opinion, made Q much... Well, I don't say much more interesting, because I don't want to say he wasn't interesting in TNG, but
it made the continuum more interesting.
Well, they gave Q depth, I'll say it that, because he was certainly one note, but not in a bad way, but he was certainly one note in TNG, but he's the trickster, that's what he did. But to provide a little more layers now...
Was that note played by a mariachi band?
No, I think what people might say is that Voyager took some things, made it more interesting, but perhaps took out the mystery of something. So, for instance, we saw Q a lot. So did it take out some of the mystery of the Q continuum, or did you want it explained? You can argue. The Borg. We got the Borg a lot. Did it take the mystery out, or was it interesting? Because, like, I thought, like the first episode we saw the Borg was early on, even before we thought we met the Borg, and that was the one with Chakotay lands on the planet with all the, he doesn't know it, all the Borg survivors, and I forget what it was called. It was like a synonym for continuum or for the collective. But I forget what it was called.
Terrible, I think.
Well, it was interesting. I mean,
the focus group.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But to add that sort of different layers of like the Delta Quadrant is where the Borg live. So we knew, and they sort of teased us coming up. I don't know if you want to go through all the aliens, but anyway, but of course, did they do the Borg too much? And of course, that you can argue that with 7. But
well, they changed the Borg from being a scary, unknown force to a known, pitied. Like, they put a face on the Borg, because really the Borg, like, we didn't know designations or names or anything like that until Voyager. 7 of 9, 2 of 3, all of that we didn't have.
I am Locutus.
Well, that's true. We did have. In Iborg, I think he had a designation.
He did,
I think he was 3 of 5 or something like that. But still, people say, like, yes, we all agree there was too much Borg, but it was really just changing the Borg, just like we changed the Klingons. I mean, the Klingons were that
That's not what
unknown,
Borg look like.
Yeah, the unknown, they're not us, they're them, they're against us. They changed from the faceless enemy to the enemy we knew, and I think that's what's destined to happen with all good villains, and I don't begrudge them that. With the story we got from Annika Hansen from 7 of 9, from the events of Unimatrix Zero, to Endgame and the Queen. Dark Frontier. Like, they gave us a lot of good stuff, and I don't feel bad that the Borg weren't as the scary, unstoppable force, because they can easily switch back into that. You look at First Contact,
3/4, whatever it is called.
Oh, 3/4, yeah. But you look at First Contact, and they're right back in that scare factor, which is fine. Like, they can turn it off and turn it on. So it's
well, I mean, yeah, I would say that no. To an extent, you can ruin the reputation. I mean, it's difficult to take them seriously. It would be difficult to take them seriously in something like First Contact if you knew that all you had to do was, hop on over there and tell them, you listen to us, you Borg. And because that's kind of what Janeway did. And they did de-teeth the Borg. I mean, I don't think it's... I do think they did interesting things with them, certainly. I mean, Unimatrix Zero is a great example of something interesting that you could do with the Borg. Scorpion, obviously, when they were first introduced on Voyager, was fantastic, was great. Then you start getting towards some of the later stuff, and I'm like, they go in different directions, and I do think it's a shame. Not that the Borg can't be done well, but you can just overdo it. Especially, I mean, Endgame. Endgame is the perfect example of that. But we could start talking about, let's talk about favorite episodes. Scorpion's a great one we just mentioned. Darren, what is your favorite Voyager episode of all time?
Year of Hell is a really strong contender. It's just I love Kirkwood Smith from RoboCop and That 70s Show and a whole bunch of other great things. Chakotay starting to go down the rabbit hole a little bit of
the
like,
worst part.
well, I do like that they have a character start to look at it from the other side, and that's when Tom has to come around and be like, "No, dude, he's he's freaking insane. Don't go that way." But I just like the concept of it, and I mean, I think we've even talked about like a Year of Hell season, like how amazing that would have been, where you just thrash Voyager and then give it a little bit of a soft reset.
I mean, I know everyone. Well, I'm the only one ever here yelling about this. I want Neelix should have gone security. He looked great in that gold uniform. I thought it was such a unexpected. Well,
time for Neelix to grow up.
They had dropped some seeds, to tell you the truth.
They had,
but so I won't say an unexpected turn for that character, but an unpredicted part for that character to be a security officer because he's all happy-go-lucky. But I thought that would have been so. And it's like the dream 7th season of Voyager. Seven's in that blue uniform. Neelix is in the gold uniform. Everyone's in a uniform. Everyone's in a uniform.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know about that.
Actually, I need to change my answer because I love that episode, and it sounds like that was Philip's episode, so I'm moving on. From
I didn't say what.
Go ahead. You
get more than one. You've earned it.
Tinker Tenor Dr. Spy. Not only is it a great title, but that's the one where the Doctor's daydreams of being a captain kind of gets him in trouble, and the ECH and the photonic cannon, and the Doctor just Kirk-style bluffing his way through at the end. That's just that's a fun episode. So there's my dramatic favorite and my fun favorite.
That's a good choice. I like that one.
Yeah, I can't remember the name of it. The one I already mentioned was I'll do a dramatic and a comedy. So my dramatic was the one I said was the EMH. I guess okay, I'm gonna have to name 2 more others because it's such an obvious one, but I'll name it anyway. I'm not having episode titles come in my brain, but it's also a Doctor episode, so then I have to choose a non-Doctor episode. But the one where he goes, everything you ever wanted: Barclay, Troy, another Zimmerman, where he goes to visit his maker, and then of course. And so you sort of get that whole storyline. Go ahead.
Here's Live Fast and Prosper. I mean,
the
fact that... No, but just the fact
I wasn't saying it was
Star
bad.
Trek,
I was just saying...
No, but the fact that Star Trek could have fun with itself. That's like a Galaxy Quest level of, like, meta commentary on oneself. So I applaud them for that.
Yeah, it was dopey fun. I liked it. It's basically taking the piss out of yourself at that point, but it's fun. You got any others, Philip, you want to mention?
Well, I don't want to steal all of them all, so I'll let you go, and I'll have a reserve one, Daniel.
So mine is going to be... Well, my honorary mention is going to be anything that has Captain Proton in it, because I'm a sucker for it. But my actual favorite is going to be Message in a Bottle.
Yes.
Which is, again, I like Voyager when it's...
So many buttons.
Dopey and fun. And this episode shouldn't work, because it's so silly and stupid, and it's got Andy Dick in it. Yeah. But it's amazing, and I love it, and it makes me laugh every time I watch it. And I think it is the most fun I have with Voyager. So, yeah, that's my favorite episode.
I was trying to think, what would you say is the most, not that you have to have one, but it's the most, I guess, the one that makes you cry, or what's the most tender Voyager episode?
I'd have to think. Family, of course. That's an easy.
Well, that's not what it's called.
Or not family. It's called...
I know what you're talking about.
What is it called?
It's the one with the
Doctor's Family.
Yeah, the Doctor's Family.
Yeah. Doctor's Family.
Right.
I'm sure there's more, though.
I was trying to think of different ones.
Also, Critical Care is the name of the one where he's stolen and put on the medical hospital, where it's the commentary
on the
Medicare
healthcare
for all.
Then there's we got to think of non-Doctor episodes. But the one where he's a copy and he's stolen from the future or picked up in the future.
Oh, the warship Voyager.
Yeah, the Future Imperfect. That's not what it's called. But anyway,
no, I know what you're talking about. That was early. That was an early one.
It wasn't that early.
If I remember.
Because it was 7. It had her drones. So it was post-7 introduction.
Oh, that's true.
I was just trying to think of each character and what would be like the most. I'm not saying it was
There's Mortal Coil, where Neelix is dealing with death. Like,
That's true.
pretty.
That one was because I was going to say the Neelix does have some good episodes. Not that you said he hasn't, but I'm just
and the Killing Game, the one with the
the holodeck and the
Nazis,
the Hirogen Nazis.
Yes.
Yeah.
Interesting. They get to play with a couple.
We did it without going back in time, Enterprise. Okay,
or T.O. Well, no, I guess not. Yeah, I'm trying to think like what's the episode where Tuvok gets that they're stranded on the planet, he and Tom, and he picks up the girlfriend. The good actress. I just can't think of her name for a second. Who's in League of Your Own. But that one was an interesting one for Tuvok. It's reminiscent of the Spock episode from TOS, where he and McCoy are stuck in a distant, ancient time, and Spock picks up a girlfriend. It'd be funny to compare those two episodes.
That was when they were in the ice cave,
Yeah.
whatever. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So I guess there's. I know it was an interesting one. It's a little. It's sort of that classic sci-fi story, and you can make that to be good or bad. Tuvok and the children. When he's stuck on the planet, and they, spoiler alert, they're actually old people. But I think it's an episode that you can rewatch. Because there's a lot of times when you learn the ending, and it's like, I can't watch anymore. But I think that one is cute because the kids are cute.
I was gonna say Blink of an Eye, the one with the planet where it's traveling faster through time, and so they go from like the Renaissance era to like future.
The sky ship.
Remember that one? Yeah. The star, the Night Star.
That's a good episodic like sci-fi tale.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a great. I mean, that's a story you would not get anywhere but Star Trek.
Right.
Like,
this isn't the greatest episode because I think the base story is not necessarily that interesting, but the overall story is, and that's 30 Days, with Tom Paris getting court-martialed.
That's when he got demoted,
Yep.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Does the whole very familiar story with thing of writing a letter and all that stuff. But I liked it. Because I think it was definitely a character thing for Tom, who's always been the bad boy. But what happens when the bad boy does something bad, but for theoretically good reasons. But
it was also when we learned about his 7th different interest about oceanography or whatever it was.
He's a complicated man, Daniel.
That he had not previously had. Then
you have Barge of the Dead,
Renaissance man,
which was the one
with
where.
Yeah. Barge of the Dead's good.
That's her Bolano's episode.
Was it Shattered or Twisted? The one where the ship was broken into different time bubbles?
Shattered.
Shattered. That was a good one.
Mm-hmm.
That was really interesting. Just how they did that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I mean,
let's just list them all, Dan.
There's lots of good stuff there, but. Before we close out, I want to talk about the Star Trek Renaissance that we have or resurgence that we're having right now, and obviously we're getting 7 in Picard, and she's clearly going to be at least a somewhat important character in that story. What else? Maybe not just Picard, but we'll start there. What else? What other elements do you want to see Admiral Janeway? What else do you want a Star Trek Janeway show? What other elements of Voyager would you like to see picked up on?
We need Admiral Kim in the background. He finally made it. Because it's like 30 years later.
Yeah, he'd be Lieutenant Kim.
Totally. Oh, that's so sad.
Lieutenant Junior Grey.
Man.
Retired.
Man. You know what I would? It's not a character, but you know what I'd love to see? I'd love to see like a shot of like the mothball fleet or like the museum, like where they have all the famous ships docked for schools to visit and stuff, and you have like Voyager and a bunch of other cool stuff.
Darren, if I'm allowed to, I'm sure this has all been solved already now that we've watched the first episode of Picard, but we know from the short trek that Utopia Planitia has been, if not destroyed, severely damaged. So the fleet needs some help, but we have a threat. So do we have? It's kind of like that first.
How many Miranda classes do we have, guys?
It's like that first episode of Battlestar Galactica. It's like, or Captain or Commander, we need more ships. He's like, I remember seeing some in the museum, and they're like, why? So we need more ships, Darren. Let's go to the museum, and they're like dusting off the old ships.
Let's get some Constitution classes. We never saw those in any of the fleets after. It was always Miranda.
They all got destroyed.
They have those models now. The CG models.
It's only a model.
That's true. It's true.
Do you guys want to see Janeway again? Well, I'm thinking maybe that's going to be a surprise cameo.
I mean,
I know. But in what capacity? Like, how do we, as a cameo, do we want to give her own show? Could this be a thing that we do now in Star Trek? Just give all the captain shows?
Well, no. I was going to say, I guess Admiral Janeway that we saw in Endgame. It's complicated, but she never existed.
But we saw her in Nemesis.
Yeah, we saw her in Nemesis.
Yeah, well, that Admiral Janeway who I'm talking about,
with or without the rest of the fleet.
That would have been because we don't look it up, but I don't know when that Admiral Janeway's timeline was. In Endgame, you know what I'm saying? How close that was to Picard.
Oh, so you're saying to see the actual. Well, yeah, the same era of Janeway that we saw.
I can't remember if that was the same time period or not. It doesn't matter. But all that's
a good question, actually. That's a great question.
Okay, so in the year 2404, the Federation is celebrating the 10th anniversary of Voyager's return from their 23 years in the Delta Quadrant. So future time is 2404.
And this is 23...
That's an Endgame.
99.
Right. Yeah, this is 23.
This is Endgame.
This is 5 years prior
to Endgame.
To Endgame,
but obviously in the corrected timeline, we know that she...
Right, none of those things have happened.
Is because
Voyager got back, and the tailor on Deck 5 rose to prominence and changed the uniforms.
It's like the Hitler premise, but with tailors.
That's really actually kind of an interesting idea, though. If they brought Janeway back, would they give her the gray hair?
I would. Well, I don't know. I think everyone's just going to play it how they look now. Because it's all like, these are how decrepit these people will look when they're older.
I know. Every time they try that, they always underestimate.
Or overestimate,
Yeah, it's true. Overestimate, yeah. I mean, like, what, Picard in All Good Things was...
Yeah.
Like, he looks better than that now.
It was the Aromatic Syndrome. So.
Oh, yeah, that's true, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it would be interesting to see. But because I don't know what Kate Mulgrew's schedule is these days, but I'm really I would love to see an Admiral Janeway cameo because I don't think they're going to bring her on for anything.
I want Deep Space Nine cameos. That's what I want.
But I think second season is what I'm saying. Everything that we haven't seen, just second season. It's already been renewed, right? We know, so every cameo is second season.
You've got to think that they wrote at least one line in Seven's dialogue about referencing something, whether it's the Doctor or...
You're not the first Admiral I've pissed off.
Yeah, exactly.
or they're like fighting holograms, and she's like, "Oh boy, holograms! I've been wanting to shoot these for years."
And we just hope it's not going to be Chakotay that she just casually name drops.
Or if they're synths and they're starting to go crazy, she could ask, "Well, how long have they been running?"
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So I'm just, we'll get some Voyager. I think we have a really big opportunity to get some Voyager tidbits in the show, and I guess we'll see what they do with that.
So here's a question, and I know that's an unanswerable question, but so Michael Dorn, I assume, has the most hours logged in for Star Trek
as a
character.
As an actor, I believe so.
So you think Seven's trying to beat his record?
She's not. She'll never reach that. She'll never.
What do you mean never?
Because he
7 plus. Well, he had 7 years plus 4.
Yeah, and she's got 5.
Okay, so she has to do. I don't know how long Picard's going to go on.
Yeah, he's got the movies and stuff. Picard's only got 10 episodes. No, they'll never get even close to Worf. She would have to do Picard for 15 years.
Maybe she's going to be in every single one of these spin-off shows.
Maybe, yeah. 7 is the Star Trek 7. It's that's the other one.
She is going to be the Star Trek Nick Fury. Is what
Star
you're saying.
Trek Borg. It's Hugh, her, and Hugh.
Are they?
What, they go off to start a new collective? What is the story there?
Yes.
I don't know.
Yeah, in the Delta Quadrant. They're rebuilding the Borg.
How is that? Why? Everything is wrong with that statement.
That's what I said about Section 31, and yet,
there's still no evidence that show actually
exists.
You're
not wrong. That's how Section 31 wants you to think. And they get you. And all of a sudden you look up and you're like, wait, I'm seeing all this documentation about the pilot was a year ago. Man, Section 31's so good. They hit it so well.
So, happy birthday, Star Trek Voyager. 25 years. And,
we're glad you're home.
Yeah, and we'll be watching for the next 25 years again, I'm sure. So excited for the future, and we'll see where it goes. So Darren, if people want to get a hold of you, how would they find you? Only on the holodeck, or maybe in the sick bay, or just in the droid room?
I'm stuck here in my podcasting room without my mobile emitter, so but they can find me on Twitch, Instagram, or TikTok under username Dr. Sci-Fi, DRSCIFI, or on my website, drsci-fi.com.
And Philip, if people want to get a hold of you, where would the best place in North Carolina to find coffee? I'm sure you would know.
I was going to say, before I give that, coffee. Black. They can reach me on the Twitterdom at NC Public Servant.
And they can find me on Twitter as well, at OneUpDan. That's the number one, as in I am one of one. No one is like me, guys. I'm unique. So we will catch you guys next week. And next week, we're going to be talking about new Star Trek. No, it is next week.
One of One is the most pretentious Borg name I've ever heard of.
No big deal, but I am a big deal.
Is Hugo by One of One now? He's just like, I'm kind of a big deal in the Borg society.
Oh, you're not from the Delta Quadrant. You probably haven't heard of me.
Oh, no big deal. No.
Never heard of me.
All right, so we will catch you all next week for New Star Trek. I'm Daniel Prue.
I'm Philip Gilfus.
And I'm Darren Moser.
Stranded here on SETI Alpha 3.